Diego is here with a really interesting question that I actually had to look up some information on because I did not know this. He asks if Ocarina of Time stuck with its original plan and made it a first person game, would Zelda as a brand still be where it is today? Now, I have a question for you guys. Had you ever heard that before?
I had never heard that before.
I think I have in a previous podcast that we've talked about, but I could be wrong.
I don't know. That was news to me, and I was like, what? So I went and looked it up. Apparently, back in 2008, Shigeru Miyamoto actually gave an interview where he said, quote, at first, when we were developing Ocarina of Time, I even proposed using a first-person perspective just to give a little bit more immersion to the player. I thought that would be the best way of enabling players to take in the vast terrain of the Hyrule field, and etc., etc., etc. Man, that's really, really a what if scenario to think about because, like, as we were kind of saying, like, Ocarina of Time, the game that we ended up getting was so like perfect basically, and it had so many ideas that became these industry standards overnight that it seems almost unfathomable to imagine it in a first person perspective. But, and I was thinking of you when we got asked this question, Amanda, you can almost say the same thing for Metroid, and that's
Hmm.
exactly what they did. So it's really interesting to think about.
Yeah, the biggest difference there is just because I'm curious to see the influence that a first person Ocarina of Time would have had on the game industry, just because the way we know Ocarina of Time as it is now, that's pretty much how all adventure games got based on after that. So I wonder if that means that there would have been more first person adventures afterwards. And
Hmm.
we've got like the first person Metroid with like Metroid Prime and all that, but then there's 2D, which is platform. Um the idea of Zelda being in first person, I can't even just I'm trying to just imagine that right now, and I just don't know how that would have translated. Like, I just don't think it would have been nearly as good, just because it's such an adventure. I just don't see it.
I've
It's weird,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm in the same boat where I keep trying to think about it and think, no, after they did that, they would have like hated it and changed the future games. But like, really, would they have? Because if it had gone well, if it had solidified the fact that Link is supposed to be your like avatar into this game, and it made it so that you're more immersed in first person, like I. It's hard to imagine, but if it did happen back then, I think it really would have changed because just because of that concept alone that you are Link, not Link as his own character. It just would have solidified that and made all the future games going forward, at least the 3D ones, more of a like they would want to keep that. So it is hard to think about because we don't have that, and at least at this point, 35 years later, we know we wouldn't like it. But just imagine in 1998 having that, it probably would have just completely changed everything.
You know what though? I don't know that we wouldn't have liked it because I'm thinking of a first person Zelda game and I'm thinking of Skyrim.